You know, LinkedIn, social media, what have you, is so important, you know, in the world we live in, not only for searching for a job, if that's what you want to use it for, but for promoting yourselves, for getting some authority in the market, and just for being socially active. I mean, I couldn't have done what I've done. I wouldn't be standing here, quite honestly, if it wasn't for LinkedIn and dedicating quite a bit of time over the last few years. I've been on LinkedIn a long time. Sorry, I'll give you a flick. So anyway, this is me. So I spent 21 years in exec search, initially in the UK, then in Dubai, and then the last 6 years in Africa. My business, which is Talent in the Cloud, we specialize on the fintech sector. So that's kind of the fintech element of this session. I'm on the board of Remit Fund, which is an international NGO, board member of the AWFP, which the ladies here know as well. I've got just over 26,000 LinkedIn connections. I've actually spent the last couple of months deleting a load of connections that, you know, had amassed over the years, and LinkedIn doesn't make it easy for you to do sort of a housekeeping job, so it's manual. And you know, this figure at the bottom is actually probably very conservative. So you know, it's at least $5 million I've generated just from LinkedIn alone. So this is the title. This is the topic here. So you know, your LinkedIn profile is more important than your CV, and if you think about that, you know, we've got some millennials here, so maybe we're a slight exception. Are a slight exception to the rule. But you know, the average person may change jobs, I don't know, maybe once every 2 years. Okay, millennials, okay, once every 3 months. But let's stick with once every few years, right? Okay. But if you think about that, so every time you apply for a job, you may send out 100 applications. So over your career, over a 30-year career, how many people are actually going to see your CV? Right? Maybe 1,000, okay? LinkedIn, you can get 1,000 views in a day, right? So that's how powerful it is. So if you have an optimized LinkedIn profile, you'll get found. I thought I'd just run through a few stats in terms of what LinkedIn is, and it's, you know, it's heavily publicized, and they've got X amount of, sorry David, the next one please. They've got, I don't know, whatever it is, I don't think I can put the number there, but it's, you know, 500 million people on LinkedIn. 2 professionals join every second. 45% are in upper management. 57% of use is on mobile. Just keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that in a minute. So, you know, 57% of LinkedIn usage is on mobile. 2 million posts a day, and we wonder why LinkedIn is so noisy and you can never find anything and you get driven mad. You know, it's used by marketers almost exclusively in the B2B sector. I know there's obviously Instagram and Facebook and what have you, and that's, I think, more for products, but when it comes to services business, it's LinkedIn. Again, you know, massive usage in terms of execs, and you know, 80% of business-to-business leads are generated from LinkedIn. I mean, that's huge. It's a huge number. And as of March, there you go, there's 610 million registered users in 200 countries. And that's pretty much every country, quite honestly. I've not found someone in a country that I've been looking for. I need to invest in one of those clickers. So when we're going to talk first of all about your profile, and then we're going to talk about how to use LinkedIn. Okay, so for me, this is the most important thing. You know, LinkedIn is not necessarily about you. It's about your audience. Okay. It's really important that you put yourself in your audience's shoes and think about, okay, if I was this person looking for me, what would I look for? You know, there's no point using language, you know, complex acronyms, if that's not what how you're going to get found. So the more you can put yourself in that person's shoes, and we'll come on to sort of building personas and understanding what your audience is looking for in a minute, but that really is, you know, hugely important. It's about your audience, it's not about you. So these are the things before you start building your profile or editing your profile at the moment. So what am I looking for? So what do I want out of LinkedIn? Who am I looking to connect with? What's in it for that person? There has to be something in it. You know, the amount of connection requests that get chucked around all over the place. You know, LinkedIn has a cap now, 30,000 connections, and that's it. Then they won't let you allow anyone else. So, you know, we're really, really careful on who we accept. You know, if there's not a reason to accept someone, we won't accept them into the network because there's a limit. How much time are you willing to invest? What you put in is what you get out of LinkedIn. You know, if you just pop in once a month, you're not going to get any value from it whatsoever. If you can commit 10, 15 minutes a day, you're going to get so much more out of it. And then should you upgrade to a paid profile? We'll come back to that. So a paid account, there's pros and cons to that. And again, depends on what you want to use LinkedIn for. David, please. Thank you. So there's something called the Social Selling Index. If you guys are online, you can do it now as we're talking. So if you go to Google and you just type in Social Selling Index LinkedIn, and it says get your score. Social Selling Index LinkedIn.
Should we go into get your score?
Yep, going to get your score. Should be a little dashboard looking a little bit like that.
Where? 73.
73, okay, that's good. Really good.
Get it so quickly. How can the non-millennials be?
Ah, there we go. I think it's that one.
Yes.
Oh,
There we go.
I'm the top 1%. Ooh.
Get your score.
Ah,
There we go. Top 1%. Excellent. Brilliant.
Top 1%.
Yeah?
I should share it on LinkedIn.
Please.
Oh, this is so flippin' awesome.
Yeah? So there you go. So I know the ladies on this table are massively socially interactive.
I got 72 out of 100.
Excellent. So the idea is behind this is if you've got a score, you've now got something to measure yourself against, right? So if you implement some of the things that we're going to talk about, hopefully you're going to see your score increase. Right. Now this goes back to who do I want to connect with and why do I want to use LinkedIn? So when I give this sort of talk or do this workshop, it's usually to people that are looking for jobs. And we go through what sort of employer you're looking for, what sort of opportunity, location, sector, etc., etc., etc. Why this is really important is that you're building a picture of an individual. It's kind of marketing 101. So you speak to any marketing departments, they will talk about building personas and avatars and all this kind of stuff. But it's really important because the amount of information you can extract from that and then use when you're searching and use to communicate with people in the language they want to be communicated with is really, really key. So you can get, there's a really good one, if you want to write this one down, it's called HubSpot. If you Google HubSpot persona, so HubSpot persona. It's a free tool, and it's a bit like a survey. So you go through and you fill out bits and pieces, and you press go, and it gives you a really nice PDF with your persona of person. Now you can have 1, 2, 10, wouldn't have any more than sort of 15, otherwise you're going to get really confused. So it's a sort of maximum of 10. And the idea here is to ascertain, okay, I'll give you an example. If I'm looking for a chief marketing officer, if I just put in chief marketing officer to LinkedIn, I'm going to exclude anyone that calls themselves a marketing director, a head of marketing, a CMO. I'm going to exclude all of that because I'm using a defined phrase. So the idea is when you build out this, you'll have one that says, job titles. And then you'll be able to go through and say, actually, I'm looking for a chief marketing officer. They may also call themselves a head of marketing, marketing manager, senior marketing manager, CMO, chief growth officer, whatever all these funky fintechs come up with as new job titles, VP of success, or I don't know what they are. But the more you come up with, the wider the audience that you can reach. And it's really good as well just to have this. We have this in our office. We know sort of our customer personas, and we know roughly our candidate personas. So when we're talking to people, we're talking in their language. So we'll come onto your profile. I've only stuck mine up there because I didn't want to pick on anyone just yet, but I'm going to in a minute. I'm going to stand this side. So a few things to look at. First things first, your header image. Okay, so this is just a JPEG image that you can put on. Again, depending on what you want. If you're looking for you're a job seeker, for example, it can be quite tricky. You might just want to put something on that's a bit conservative. This is a professional social networking site. It's not Facebook, right? So we don't really want to see you with your dog and your kids and at the beach, and that save that for Facebook. But for what we do, a lot of what we do is authority marketing and having a sort of voice in the industry, which is why that picture's there, and it's just adds some social proof. LinkedIn is about social proof. People will come on here, going back to the first point, people will see your LinkedIn profile more than see your CV. Yeah. So, Estelle, I think you said at the beginning, LinkedIn is now, you can be something completely different, but your LinkedIn profile says this, but you're actually doing that. That's just how it is. So what you perceive on here, what you portray, is how people are going to see you. Photo, try and get a headshot again. If it's way in the distance and, backdrop of Table Mountain or the London Eye or whatever it may be, it's just not going to work, right? The next thing, bit of advice here. We see a lot of people that say something like, Darren Frank's MBA, stroke, I don't know, PhD, SEMA, don't do that. Not necessary, really isn't necessary. I don't think anyone's going to search and go past you because you haven't said you've got an MBA. Okay, there's a place for that in the LinkedIn profile. It's not there. This is probably the most important part of your LinkedIn profile. And if you remember, we spoke, or I mentioned a bit earlier on, 47% of LinkedIn usage is on mobile. Yeah. That's the first thing you see. You see picture and you see title. The title is, you're limited in characters, but again, think about what you're looking to achieve. Who am I looking to, I'm looking for a job is not going to be as attractive as saying who you are, what you do, and the value you can bring. Then you've got the about bit here. I'll come on to this bit in a second, but sorry everyone, I've missed a really important thing. Right at the top, you see the URL? Okay, if you look at your URL on your LinkedIn profile, see what it says. If it's a load of numbers, you can change that. Yeah. Okay, you can have your own URL. It's really good if you're adding it to your signature, or you want to point someone to it. Maybe you've got a link to your LinkedIn profile on your CV. It just looks a lot cleaner, it looks a lot more professional if you got your name. It's just personalized. You do that by clicking me and then settings, and it will open it up straight away. You can change your URL. So that's really important to do. So this bit, the about, we can talk about content. Look, content is king, but unless you've got something worthwhile saying, it's kind of not worth putting anything up there at all. Again, if you're representing a business and you've got a brochure, you've got a video, you've got something that's of interest, absolutely put it on there, because again, it's one of the first things people see. We don't get that many clicks on this type of stuff, but again, if you have got content, just put it there, because it's always going to be there. So what we tend to put here is like evergreen content that doesn't necessarily have an expiry date, and it's just there, and we change it as and when. I'll come back onto the lower bits in a minute, because I've got, when we do the live sort of critique, then we can talk about some, and I can show you mine and go through some others as well. But there's some other key sort of elements there that I think are really important. One thing, I was with another client last week, 2 weeks ago, and we went through her job. She works for a massive company, but they have a holding company in South Africa. And we know this lady well, she spoke at the event. And the company name was the holding company's name in South Africa, but it wasn't the group company. So when you clicked on her profile, it popped up and said there's 2 employees. Now that company employs 7,500 people. But to someone that doesn't know that company, they think it was a 2-person business. So it's really important that you link your company, so you should have a company page, most businesses do, to your profile. Really, really important. David, if you want mine. There we go. So use a custom URL, just to summarize. Keep it professional. What do you want to be known for? If you want consulting gigs, put consulting gigs up there. Well, I wouldn't use necessarily the word consulting gigs, but you're an independent consultant looking for engagements, whatever it may be. Use the background image to validate what you do. So, we obviously talk at a lot of conferences, so I always use that sort of image. If I was a startup and I had something really cool, I'd probably use a screenshot of my app, if that was the case. If I was into event management, I'd probably put a big picture of one of the big events that I've done, just something that validates what you do. I was reading something last night about publishing articles. So LinkedIn have got this thing called LinkedIn Pulse, where you can spend, and I have done this before, spend hours and hours writing, something that I thought was really good and really high quality, and it took hours and hours, if not days, to write something, like a blog. Posted it, 8 views. Well, that was a waste of time, right? And then did a status update that probably took me 15 seconds, and it had 30,000 views, right? So the status updates are way more powerful than publishing on LinkedIn. So if you have content that you've put on your website, replicate it and put it on LinkedIn, but don't expect it to go viral. It's very, very rare that it does. But LinkedIn updates work much, much, much better. So if you go back to your phones and you go to my profile, or you go to me, I think it's called, and see what your profile looks like, that's where 47% of people that are looking at you are going to see first. So if you haven't got your title, you haven't got a picture, you haven't got an opening statement, it looks very, very bland. People have an attention span of about 2 seconds. If you haven't got a picture, they'll scan across it, next, next, next. If you haven't got the exact job title that someone's looking for or industry, yeah, they'll just scroll way past, and you'll kind of be left there. That's if you appear on the searches anyway. David, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. Okay, this goes back to this bit. Now, remember at the beginning we spoke about who or what do we want to use LinkedIn for, and who do we want to connect with. But again, using the persona that we used earlier, what we're trying to do is extract some of the key things that a profile would have. So this lady here, who's the CMO, in her profile, chief marketing strategy, return on marketing investment, CRM, application, software conversion, all of these things I've taken out of her persona. And I know that's generally speaking, because you're never going to be 100%, but generally speaking, anyone who's a CMO is probably going to have something similar to this, right? Now, not everyone has an optimized LinkedIn profile. I read somewhere, and I don't know how much truth there is in this, only 53% of LinkedIn profiles are actually active. And by that, I mean someone's logging in and actively using LinkedIn, I think once every 3 months, I think it was 3 or 4 months. So there's a massive part of LinkedIn that's never ever used, right? There's a huge audience. So yeah, they've got half a billion people, but really it's probably 250 million, really and truly, if you wouldn't mind. Cool, okay. So I mentioned a word a little while ago called Boolean. Does anyone know what that is? Has anyone come across Boolean search before? No? Okay. Let me write it, it's a lot easier. So, am I right to stand here and draw? Yeah, okay, fine. So, if I'm looking for CMO, I remember we said earlier that CMO might not actually be called a CMO, they might be called a Chief Marketing Officer. So I'm then going to do, or Chief Marketing Officer. Right? The or here needs to be in capitals. Okay? It's a Boolean. That needs to be capital letters. Anything else can be lowercase, that's fine. That has to be capital letters. It's the only way LinkedIn will recognize that. It works exactly the same on Google. Google works exactly like this as well. Job boards work like this. Bing, Yahoo, it's all based on Boolean logic. So there's loads of different things you can do. So you've got ors, you've got ands, you've got not, and you can also use plus and minus as well. So I could say that I'm looking for a CMO or Chief Marketing Officer and fintech. Oh, and I should be able to spell that. It's my sector. Thank you. Fintech. Yeah, because that. Okay. So there's two things you can do here. If I was writing a long piece of logic, I'd start using brackets because I want to start dividing things up. It's a bit like a formula that you use on Excel, okay? So if I was looking for a CMO or a Chief Marketing Officer and fintech, I would do it. I would literally do it like this. So I'd put those in brackets and I'd write and fintech, okay? There's loads of stuff on this on the internet, by the way. This is very, very, very basic. Now, LinkedIn is a little bit limited in terms of how long that string can be, but what they have got is obviously filters. So you could choose by sector, so you can narrow that down. So you could write your string and then say only people working in financial services and based in London. And I can't remember what some of the other filters are there as well, but sector, education, I think you can narrow down to as well. Now, going back to the paid versus the free account, if you have the paid account, you can get more granular. Okay, it gives you more ability to narrow down on your audience. So that's one of the big benefits of having a paid account is you can be very, very granular. Right, how to connect. Please, 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 if there's one thing you take away from today, just that top line. If there's anything else you forget, please, that's fine. Don't ever sell if you're connecting to someone. It's horrible, people hate it. You won't get a response, they'll delete you. I know I do. LinkedIn is a bit like a connection request is a bit like a first date, right? There's certain things you just don't do, you don't speak about, and selling is definitely one of those things. I get connection requests and they look an interesting person. I click connect. 10 seconds later, I've got war and peace about how great their products or services. Delete. Do I ever read it? No, delete. LinkedIn is about building relationships, and it does take time. You can build a process, which I'm going to come on to. I'm going to give you some examples and a couple of tricks in terms of building a funnel and engaging with people over a period of time. But you can't do it when you first connected to someone. You know, you're not going to meet someone walking down the street and then just start selling to them. Well, I don't know. In some parts of the world you would, but generally speaking, you wouldn't. Writing a personal message, when you connect to someone, you can write a very short intro. Now, is generally, I won't accept anyone unless they've taken the time to explain why they want to connect with me. Of course, there are exceptions. If the CEO of a brand new fintech in wherever it may be wants to connect with me, okay, cool, I'll connect with him or her. But if it's just a random connection, someone's just clicked connect. I'm not going to bother, right? There's nothing in it for me. So you can write a really personal message, or it can be a little bit generic. You know, I see we operate in the same sector. I thought I'd invite you to join my network. Great. Someone says that to me. That's cool. I know roughly what they do. Someone says sales in their title or business development. You know, I press the button and go, right, how long is this going to be? Yeah, 10 seconds. That wasn't too bad. So yeah, there you go. LinkedIn do have connection sort of limitations and throttles. I think it's depends on the account, but I think it's 50 a day, 50 connection requests a day. They do keep changing that though. If you've got premium account, it's 100. If you've got one of the recruiter accounts, I think it's 200 or something like that.
You can send or receive?
That you can send.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, receiving is unlimited, right? But you can send. One thing that if you do use LinkedIn a lot, if you go into where it says My Network and it says Connections, there's one that says Sent. Okay, if you go into your Sent, you'll see potentially there's hundreds in there. Yeah, you have to clear those out because LinkedIn look really negatively on that. If you're not clearing out people that you haven't accepted your invitation, it's kind of a black mark that goes against you. Right, some tips and tricks. I'll go through. I'm going to show you something in a second as well, which I think you find useful. But make sure your profile's public. There's a setting on LinkedIn that you can have a public profile, you can have a private profile. If you have a private profile, you won't get found. If you have a public profile, you will get found. When I log onto my LinkedIn, I'll show you where all this stuff is. 15 minutes a day being socially active, liking, commenting. Commenting is way more powerful than liking something. Getting a reference is really important on LinkedIn, depending on your job, right? So you can see there's endorsements. So there's two parts of LinkedIn. There's something called endorsements, and there's something called, I think they call it references, but we'll have a look in a second. Ask people to give you an endorsement, a reference, a testimonial, that's what it's called. Ask them to give you a testimonial. Now, there's no point asking your mum and your dad and your brother and your sister and some guy you worked with 20 years ago to give you a reference. That's pointless, right? You want to use, again, this is another social selling or social proof, okay? If I'm going to go and pitch my services to someone and they know they're going to check my LinkedIn, what do I want them to see? I want them to see someone of their peer that's commenting on the work that I've done, right? Makes sense. So it can be a manager. If you're a job seeker, it could be managers, it could be partners, it could be customers, it could be whoever you want. The more senior person you can get, or the more influential person you can get to acknowledge you and to write a testimonial for you, the more powerful it is, etc. This is one for the ladies here. Again, using this logic, people like me, when a client comes to us and says, we really want a female to do this role, how am I going to find a female on LinkedIn? You can't search by gender, right? So we use this. She, her mother, any sort of connotation of that. Never 100% accurate, of course. But it takes, we were saying earlier, you've got 20 million people and you need to narrow it. You have to use something to do that with, right?
Put these words in.
Anywhere in your CV. Yeah, no, you put it in your profile. It's better to write as you as an individual, as the first person. But what you could say, I'm a mother to 2 kids. There's a way of making it fit without it being too obvious, okay? Okay, another one. So if we're part of the European Women in FinTech and Payments, you've probably just put EWPN, right? But only people that know EWPN are going to know that. So I would put European Women in FinTech and Payments, right? Because I put the word women in there. Yeah. Same as AWFP. I wouldn't just put AWFP, I put African Women in FinTech and Payments, because you're then adding that word in there. Now, I'm not saying this is, you'll get excluded from being contacted if you don't have this in there. I'm just saying, from an SEO perspective, when people like us are doing searches, and I have a team that does this all day long, you want to go up the ranks. You want to be found quicker than someone else. Test stuff. What I've said here is just what's worked for me, but I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, and LinkedIn keeps changing. The audience you're speaking to may respond differently to different types of messages, so test it. It's marketing. Test one message, or write one connection request, okay? Send that to 20, or send it to 10 people.
Yeah.
And then look at the metrics, right? How many people have accepted my invitation? 5 out of 10. Okay, 50%, not great, let's tweak it. Try a different message. All of a sudden it's 7 out of 10. Oh, that's pretty good. I've got 70% conversion. And yeah, convert LinkedIn relationships to emails, then to meetings, then hopefully to either opportunities or business or whatever it may be. Okay, and I'm going to share it to the end in a second. Okay, I'm going to go on to a couple of tips and tricks. Does anyone here know Trello? Anyone heard of Trello? Okay, I'll show you a little trick with Trello. First things first, so Trello is completely free. I'm going to set up a new board. Oh, has that just died? There we go. There we go.
I'm going to do A/B testing on that.
Yep.
If I put the posts with the link on the bottom.
So I'm going to call this LinkedIn.
Yeah, let's test it.
Right. So guys, I've just created a new board on LinkedIn on Trello called LinkedIn Demo. So I'm going to put here connection sent. Oh, connection sent. Accepted. Emailed.
Oh, it's like you're creating a
Yep.
CRM.
Meeting. Really, really basic CRM for LinkedIn. So then when I go to LinkedIn, have I still got it installed? Yes, I have. So there's a plugin here. Can you see up here, the Trello plugin?
Oh, what, you can take all your connections?
No, they're not that good. They're not that good. So if I go to, let's just find someone to connect to, whoever it may be, this person, right? And I want to connect with this person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send him a connection request, and I'm going to write my message, and I'm going to click on my little Trello button, and I'm going to add him to, assuming this LinkedIn demo. There we go, LinkedIn demo. I'm going to attach that there. Always press this button. I'll show you why.
Nice, you can do the
Yeah.
connection with person.
Click that. Now when I go back into my Trello board, so I've got Fedor in here.
Oh, that's so good for HR people.
Yeah, very good, right? So then I'm going to look at this. So maybe I'm going to do 50 LinkedIn requests a day, and then come here tomorrow morning and go, right, okay, I'm going to have a look in my connections. Who's accepted, right? Fedor's accepted, perfect. Now I'm going to send him an email, maybe a couple of days later. Guys, I'm not going to have time to do a critique. I'm really sorry. But I hope you found this useful. It was a very quick and dirty kind of LinkedIn overview. So.